Hi, welcome or welcome back. My name is Justin, and this is Dad Discovers, where we learn about the world through reaction videos. Today, we're checking out a video about why British people look down on Americans. Let's go ahead and jump straight into it. Can't wait to see what they have to say.
How do you feel the British perceive Americans?
I feel like there's quite a lot of, I hate to say it, but mockery involved.
I think a lot of people think
see
Americans
that.
are extreme.
Do you think that the British think that they're better than Americans?
I think some do, yeah.
There's a lot to make fun of, I think.
We're also fantastic at queuing as well. That's another great thing about us.
Rubbing me the wrong way because they're too extra. It doesn't seem like it's genuine.
Today, I'm in London.
Yeah, being extra, that's definitely something that we see a lot in America. I don't know what it is with people, but I don't know. People just have to be loud and extra. So she's not wrong.
To get to the bottom of a very important question. For as long as I can remember, I have had the sense that the British look down on Americans. This is a generalization, and therefore doesn't apply to everyone, but it's a strong enough trend that I felt I needed to investigate this further. Here's a quote from Prince Harry's memoir, Spare, that perfectly captures the feeling that I have about this. With some, the anti-American sentiment ran very hot. I was reminded of my childhood, when people warned me all the time about Americans. Too loud, too rich, too happy, too confident, too direct, too honest. I'm very curious what people...
Too loud? Yeah, a lot of us are. Too rich? Definitely not. I mean, we definitely have rich people in this country, but the vast majority are not rich. Too confident? I don't think so. Because I'm a very introvert person, and like even starting this YouTube channel, like talking to the camera is awkward. It's very awkward. I'm definitely not confident with it.
Going to have to say about this. I have a feeling I'm onto something, okay? So, having said that, let's start talking to some people.
Shooting a video for YouTube, could I ask you guys a question? This will be really brief. You hate it? Okay, that's okay.
I'm sorry.
Not that easy today, huh?
No, it's not. I'm wondering if I could just get a moment.
I've got too much
We're
time.
off to a very slow start.
Well, I think it's
okay.
weird.
Let's just
Somebody
change
walks
the
up to you with a
spot.
camera.
Feeling
Like, hey, can
there's
we
enough
interview you for our
projections in
YouTube
that
channel?
100-meter radius.
You know, I always feel really terrible that everyone's first attitude is, oh, you're from America, are you? Oh, okay. You know, which is always a bit, you always feel a bit bad about that because I'm not entirely sure why we still do that, but you know. It's,
How do you feel perceived as Americans by the British here in London?
A big, stupid, bellowing oaf. Yeah, genuinely. I always feel like I have to apologize for being Americans. Like, I know my accent's the worst thing you'll hear today, but can I just order a coffee?
My experience, I feel like, has been a little bit different. I think that might be somewhat informed by the fact that I'm a student here. At first, there was a bit of a learning curve. Like, when I would speak loudly on the tube, I would kind of get looks, and people would tell me, like, you're being American, like, can you maybe not?
There's definitely sort of a sense that there is a lot of difficult things going on in America, and that America potentially could be quite a difficult place to live, especially.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult right now in America. Like, we have a lot going on with our politics, and it's so polarizing. Like, everybody's not literally attacking everybody, but it seems like everybody's attacking everybody for everything.
If you're of colour or from the Middle East.
I have to admit, the inspiration to make this video came when I moved to Europe. As I've explored in previous videos on this channel, many Europeans have mixed to negative views of Americans as dumb and uncultured. But to my surprise, the same goes for the British. I've come to realize that the only people that see the British as intelligent and sophisticated are the Americans. Many Europeans, like the Portuguese or the Spanish, see a very different reality. The British that go off on holiday to get extremely drunk and break things. The British that are isolationist with Brexit. The British that don't learn foreign languages, that stick to their native tongue. Wait a second, I thought to myself. That's what Americans do. Other people do this as well?
How dare they copy us?
So the British are the Americans of Europe. Because yeah, I have that same like stereotype in my head that he was just talking about with, like, when I think of a British person, I think of an intelligent person. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the accent I don't know what it is, but I just think intelligence when I think of British people.
I kid, of course. Still, it does feel like the Brits act like the Americans of Europe, but I am certain that is not something that they'd like to hear said about them. I mean, no offense. I am American after all. Does that not prove my point, though? No one wants to stoop to the level of Americans. I felt I had to get my answers directly from the source. My perception is that the UK is 1 foot in Europe, 1 foot like in the Americas. It feels like it should be in the middle of the Atlantic. Do you agree with that?
I think that's a pretty conclusive idea. Yeah, I think that's definitely true because a lot of people wouldn't even class England as being in Europe. You know, even in England, when you talk about going to Europe, no one ever thinks you mean Doncaster. They always think you mean Germany. You do get some perception that everyone's some sort of like a Valley Girl accent or something like that, and I think that annoys people quite a lot. But then again...
So do people in the UK not consider themselves part of Europe? Because I've always considered UK part of Europe, like always.
It's the same way that English people are often perceived as all sort of being from London. You know, the American dream, making yourself better and being seen to be self-improving, and it's a lot about earning money and being the best you can and going to the gym and all these kind of things.
Do you think that, are you saying it's positive or negative?
I think it's a positive thing for Americans, but I think the way it's perceived is often everyone goes, oh, get out of my face, you know, because they probably, no one likes to enjoy someone else's success, at least in England anyway. I think in America it's probably very different. Oh great, you got a promotion, fucking bastards. Yeah.
I think the identity of being American is like such a thing,
right,
that I don't think other places have that as much.
I don't think people are necessarily dumb, and I don't think it's a question of being dumb. I think it's just that there's this idea of like, yeah, being the best. To think that like people in America, depending on where you're born, you can have access to care or not, it's frightening. And I don't know how you can speak about being the best when you can't even make sure that everybody's like taken care of. Are you treating everyone the same way in America? No, not everyone is treated the same way, just like not everyone is treated the same way in Europe.
Right. I would imagine
Having
it's
been
like
to
that
America
everywhere.
a lot, they often ask, obviously as a joke, but just like, do you know the royal family or anything like that?
So do you feel that generally, this big generalization, there's mockery towards the Americans and Americans towards the British is more like cute. We think you're cute.
Yeah, I would say that, yeah.
How do you feel about Americans thinking you're cute?
Well, it can be taken as a compliment, obviously, but if they think that we're, like, as a country, not really a force to be reckoned with, then just because we do all these, like, things that date back to long before the US was established, it's not really relevant that they can mock us for that.
Is it condescending, would you say?
A little bit.
Or ignorant?
More ignorant. It doesn't, like, hurt me. You know?
How do you feel Americans perceive the British, first of all?
They kind of look down on us.
You feel that?
I feel like Americans think like they're on top of everything, and there's always competition between the two.
So do you feel like the British have a chip on them?
I don't think that's a common belief that Americans look down on people from the UK. Like I said, you know, I've always looked at UK as like intelligence, and I know you guys, you know, have a vast history of stuff compared to the US. But I really don't think a lot of people look down on you guys. So yeah.
Shoulder a little bit because of that.
Yeah, a lot.
What do you think the British are better at than Americans?
Yeah, polite, really.
More polite.
Yeah, more talkative, more helpful.
More helpful. The British are more helpful.
Yeah, than Americans. But Americans are nice. They're funny. Got good music.
Got good music. Okay. Well, the British have good music too, man.
Americans are taking over the music scene.
But I mean, come on. There's a lot of great British music. So here's the thing that I think is going on here. We are not the same, the Brits and the Americans, but we sure have a lot of similarities. Compare us to the Japanese or to Native Americans or to Ethiopians, and the differences between Americans and the British seems relatively small. We're like blood siblings in the village that...
Now, I don't know a lot about those countries he just mentioned, but yeah, I would imagine, you know, culturally, just everything, the way everything's ingrained, that US and UK are probably fairly similar compared to, you know, a large portion of the world.
Is the globe. So here's what all of this started to make me think of. There's a concept in psychoanalysis, I'm going to read you the definition, but it's called the narcissism of small differences. This comes from Freud. The narcissism of small differences is the idea that the more a relationship or community shares commonalities, the more likely the people in it are to engage in interpersonal feuds and mutual ridicule because of hypersensitivity to minor differences perceived in each other. We see this all over the world, between the Argentinians and the Chileans, for example, between the French and the Belgians. And indeed, I think this is what is happening between the Brits and the Americans. But at the end of the day,
I would probably agree with that.
We make the little things that make us different much bigger than they really are.
The way that we speak and the words that we use.
Yeah.
And again, we were talking about this, weren't we?
Yeah.
About
we were
certain
talking
words.
about things like autumn versus fall. And it's like that's often something that people like bring up, and for some, well, it's because it's a simpler word, and it's like, fall, American.
You guys don't say
classic.
fall.
I think it's probably 50-50 here. Like sometimes I say fall, sometimes I say autumn. It just depends on who I'm talking to and what exactly is going on in the discussion. But a lot of people say autumn here.
No, we don't say fall. We say autumn.
Interesting. Okay.
So this is autumn, not fall.
But you can say autumn as well. All right, before we go any further, I want to quickly thank the sponsor of this video, BetterHelp, whose support has made it possible for me to take as high quality as there's flexibility, affordable, then and get matched with a therapist. And now, let's convenience of life, the speed, the capitalism, the language.
Everyone speaks English. Everyone's like got the same sort of core values. I'm not necessarily a big Christian person at all, but we all come from this like Christian-based countries. America and Australia are English. There's some things that happen in history, but at the end of the day, we're kind of all the same group of people in that regard.
Right. Culturally influenced.
Culturally influenced by the same group. So I personally don't see many differences at all.
I mean, I've got wonderful American friends who I adore, so that question for me is a difficult one because I think they're great, they're fantastic. Yeah. I think the difference is in the way our language is.
Yeah, I think if you know somebody from another country, and it doesn't even have to be between UK and in America, or from the UK and the US, if you know somebody, as long as you think fond of them, then yeah, you're not going to just automatically stereotype everybody from that country as whatever. But on the reverse side of that, if you know somebody from, like say you know somebody from the US and they are condescending, then probably by default you're going to think everybody's like that here, or at least, the majority. I think that's just the way we think.
That's where there's a difference.
So pretty minor.
Yeah.
Do you think that sometimes some of the British media or the portion of the British population that looks down on Americans, is it a way to deflect some of the issues that exist here? Could that be said of all societies?
Yeah, you can say that of all societies, but you can also say that about the media. They're always distracting, aren't they, from topics, whatever it is.
Same here. Like American media. I don't know how a lot of media is in other parts of the world, but American media is, in my mind, the worst. Like they're so, like I said earlier, polarizing. You could take anything that happens in any given day, you can put it on CNN, and they're spinning it, way to the left, and then you turn it on Fox News, and they're spinning it way to the right. The exact same story. Like it's crazy.
Alpha male, if you think about it in terms of masculine and feminine, there's an alpha maleness to Americans. And maybe it's just the way they speak, the accent. I don't think so. But you don't really have that sense of Britain. I think there's a stereotype of the repressed male, that soft-spoken.
Considering we're like right on the edge of Europe, we have more in common with America in many ways than we do with the rest of Europe, which in theory is where we should be more aligned. And I think there's sort of something that can feel sort of slightly odd about that, like with the whole Brexit thing, breaking away more from where we're most closely connected to, and sort of being in a situation where, we're going to end up with chlorinated chicken instead.
There's this tendency to think of Americans as just, they're simplistic, really.
Are you annoyed by the Americans here in
Sometimes.
I'm annoyed by
Depends how they are.
Now the interesting thing is I love to drag the US through the mud and criticize it for all the things that I think it deserves criticism for, but the second the Brits start criticizing me or the US,
you can't do that.
To say. Kind of like I can criticize where I grew up, but you aren't allowed to.
Right.
And the British, in my opinion, are doing their version of the same thing, criticizing themselves to no end, but no one wants an outside opinion. Maybe we all do this. I think we all do this. It's like pointing at someone else's flooded house.
But a lot of times I do like to see what other people think of the U.S. Because, we go to school and we're taught the U.S. the U.S. is the greatest country on earth. We're the strongest country on earth. We're the most powerful country. We're the richest country. But at the end of the day, I think, do other countries tell their people the same thing? Like, is that just a propaganda type thing? If you go to Australia, is their government telling them they're the strongest and they're the richest? If you go to UK, is their government telling them they're the strongest and the richest? Like, I just wondered. I just assume that every government tells their people that they're the best.
When your own house is on fire.
So I lived in America for 6 years. I lived in California, Alabama, Oklahoma for 3.
Right.
Everyone hears my accent.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, where in America are you from? I'm like, well, I'm actually from Australia, but then they give me their little opinions on American stuff. So I've actually had to play defense a couple times since I've been out here.
Are you serious?
I'm so serious. Because they talk about guns or they talk about this, but they don't have like a very good understanding, not just English people, just people around the world, even in Australia, of the history of America and why those things became what they were. People trying to, throw rocks and then hide their hands.
Yeah.
They don't want the blame to be on them, so it's easy to put it on the big superpower that is on everyone's TV.
My perception is I don't consider Americans necessarily lesser in terms of like lifestyle, culture per se. I just think it's a bit more apparent than it is in the UK, but the UK is just as problematic.
There's always sort of a sense in the past that like America was sort of, 2 decades ahead of what was happening in this country. There is a sense that we're getting closer in a time frame.
I would say younger generations tend to be a bit more.
Yeah, I feel like the further we go into the future, as these younger generations start to take, I mean, it's really a scary thought, but as they start to move into the older generations, I think, a lot more is going to go towards, like, I don't even want to say unification, but a lot of these, countries will start being
And the only
more
word I
of
can
the
think
same,
of is
if that makes
shameful
sense.
Of the heritage. I think it's a lot of things from like colonialization and things like that. There tends to be a lot more shame around it.
We're a small island, right? So we've got a small island mentality, but because we've got a small island mentality, we've got to overcome it by kind of that impression that we're the best. And I think that's changing, though. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a total reflection of society now, but I think historically it has been, of course. Let's flip the question. How are Americans perceiving the British?
My answer to that is there is a power dynamic going on, and for better or for worse, the U.S. is much more of a world superpower right now. So I don't think that the U.S. feels threatened necessarily, like competitive with Great Britain. Because of that, I think there's kind of like they're cute, you know what I mean? Like they're Harry Potter and James Bond and sophisticated and...
I mean, I don't really think about it like that. I mean, especially since, we're allies, so I don't think there would be any issues. Now, the way our government treats people, maybe not one day.
So a major degree of ignorance, like the U.S. is so self-involved, we're not even paying attention to what's going on elsewhere in the world, so there's not even enough to form an opinion, Now this video was definitely supposed to be in good fun. I harbor no ill will towards the British. I find our rivalries as human beings across cultures, across nations, to be comical and interesting. It's like an insight into human psychology. And despite all of the, criticizing going on
right
here, I'd like to end on a positive note. I'd like to express my appreciation for a few things that I think the British do better than Americans. Your healthcare system, for one. Also, the Premier League. They say football was invented in England, and if that is true, as someone with Argentinian background, I can only thank you. I also have to thank you for your incredible music. What a contribution to our collective heritage. It is a foreign idea to me to have a royal family, but I respect the commitment to tradition.
But I did move.
Although I feel like a lot of Americans are super, I don't even know the word, focused, obsessed with the royal family. Even my mom, what was it? What was going on? The wedding a few years back, and she was watching on TV, and like I don't know, just a lot with Americans. You know, I feel like America pays a lot of attention to the royal family.
Here, the week that the Queen died, so it was really interesting to see. I think my first impression of like the British as a public was that of like mourning for their queen, you know, the 14-hour-long line to go see her lying in state. So I think it was a little bit of a shock. This might sound silly, but how procedural the British can be. I noticed that tends to be like every British person I've met tends to be very procedural, as opposed to Americans. I think
that's
are
not a
a
bad
little bit
thing.
more, like, dare I say, free-spirited or individualistic. So, I mean, I think that's not to say that one is better than the other.
And as a final note, we are obviously a world of individuals, and so stereotypes never fully work. Still, I find it's so fascinating to explore the stereotypes and cliches that we have for one another. Not always, but often there is some sort of basis of truth there, or else they wouldn't spread and persist as they do. Anyway, having said all of that, I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please consider liking it, which tells the algorithms to share this with more people. I thought it was fun, and it's a format I'd love to continue exploring.
I'll drop a link for him in the description if anybody's interested in checking him out.
With that, I hope to see you.
This was a good video. This was a really good video. But yeah, I do want to do a video on, he mentioned healthcare. I do want to do a reaction video on kind of reacting to you guys' healthcare, because I know our healthcare is absolutely terrible. I mean, it's good health, it's good care. It's just unaffordable. You can't afford it. And I would like to dive, a little deeper into that. Last week I did a video on Canadian healthcare, and the video that I watched wasn't well perceived in the comments. A lot of people told me that guy was, full of it or whatever. That guy just what he was saying doesn't reflect their level of care. Which I mean, it's a video on the internet, so I guess you gotta take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, I'm looking forward to checking out a video on the UK's healthcare system. What do you guys call it? National Health, NHS, National Health Services. But yeah, until next time, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one, hopefully. Have a great day.